I suppose in my music, if I had to be critical about it, to the extent that I have any perspective about it at all, because most artists only pretend to have perspective about their pieces, their works. In the case of my own music, I would have to say that it has its roots everywhere. In jazz, in Hebrew liturgical music, in Bach and Beethoven, and Schumann and Chopin and Mahler and the rest. In the musicians of my own country, like Copland and Harris and Schumann. It also has its roots in Schoenberg and in the various movements that have revolutionized music in our century and caused crisis to occur in our musical history.
As the Charles Eliot Norton Professor of Poetry at Harvard in 1973, Bernstein delivered a series of lectures which examined the crisis in music caused by the break with tonality. In 6 televised talks, he propounded an inborn physical rationale for tonality based on a highly original analogy between music and spoken language. The music of the future, he suggested, would be a synthesis of divergent styles within a tonal framework.
And I believe all this has been made possible by the rediscovery, the re-acceptance of tonality, that universal earth out of which such diversity can spring. And I believe that no matter how serial or stochastic or otherwise intellectualized music may be, it can always qualify as poetry as long as it is rooted in earth. The artist in America is in a particularly eclectic position, much more than Bach, Beethoven, the others that I mentioned, because he signifies and stands for a highly eclectic and pluralistic country. After all, there is no such thing as an American. Americans, if you want to go down to roots, are Red Indians. And with the exception of them, everyone else is an immigrant. We are all immigrants or sons or grandsons or great-great-grandsons of immigrants. And these immigrants are of all kinds. Some were slaves when they came here, and we tend to forget that when we speak of Americans as types. Some were Poles, and some were Hungarians, and some were Chinese, and some were Jews, and some were Spanish, and many, of course, now are Latin Americans. But they're all Americans. And anybody who has his ear to the ground and who is sensitive to the country in which he lives reflects that country. And being such a hodgepodge and such a pluralistic kind of country, it would naturally cause a reflection to take place, which is in itself eclectic. What holds it all together with any given particular composer is his own personal voice, which is always there. It renders the word eclectic a beautiful word.
Bernstein's eclecticism is evident in his Mass, a theater piece for singers, dancers, and players, which opened the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. in 1971. A work which mixes Roman liturgy and rock lyrics, Mass was greeted with both praise and scorn.
I'm used to a great deal of critical hailstones. And by this time, at the ripe old age of whatever I am, it shouldn't bother me anymore, and I suppose it doesn't. On the other hand, it would be pleasant if people understood what it was I was trying to do. Now, when I say people, I'm making a very definite distinction between critics and people. because I write my music for people, and certainly not for critics.